Hi everyone. I thought I'd do something a little different with this video. So a bit of a background about myself. I've had over 40 years experience in various roles. Yeah, so I started off in retail and then I liked maths, so I actually did accounting. So I did accounts type of jobs. I did about maybe 5 or so of those. And then I discovered IT, so then I moved to IT, and there has been a couple of periods throughout my life where I've been unable to get a job for more than 6 months, a couple of times more than a year. So, and during those times, I've had to resort to oddball jobs like working in petrol stations, um, filling up drink machines, things like that. I worked in a chemical factory once. That was interesting, getting to play with all the super corrosive chemicals. So I had to really watch myself there. So anyhow, I digress. So my my so this video is talking about my resume and what I've noticed when I go to recruiters and hiring agencies, how they actually view my resume. So I've, I've been paying attention to what they do when they look at my resume. So when I was younger, in my 30s and maybe early 40s, I used to list all my jobs, and it got to the stage where I had a lot of jobs, and just listing with a brief description what each job did, my resume was about 10 to 12 pages. So, and I had my education up the front and on the second page. And this is back in the days before people couldn't care less about your skills matrix and all that type of stuff. So that wasn't really put on resumes back then. So as an older person now, I've noticed once I got to 50 that people, especially recruiters, once you got the experience, recruiters couldn't give a toss about what qualifications you have or what degrees you have. They couldn't care less. That's the first thing I noticed. They just skip straight over that stuff. So I started moving all my qualifications to the last page of my resume and condensed it to just a few lines. So the other thing I noticed was once you get a bit of experience, people don't care what you did more than 10 years ago. So the next stage was I started dropping off a lot of jobs or jobs that didn't mean anything. So I ended up shortening my resume till it was about 2 pages long. I really can't shorten it anymore unless I start omitting things. Important keywords. So that's how it stands for me now. So, and then once I started noticing that it was hard to get a job because of my age, I started doing tricky little things like I removed my date of birth off my resume. I removed the dates in which I obtained my qualifications, hoping that people wouldn't be able to work out how old I was from the year that I studied. So all these little things, and I cut off all my work except for the last 10 years. So I noticed these things worked. I got quite a few interviews and people ringing me up and everything was good. And then I would go to the interview. And the minute the person saw me, I could see that their face dropped and I could see within their body language that there was no way I was going to get this job. So, um, so I'm guessing the internal process they were thinking is, oh, this guy is far older than we thought he was, or that his resume suggests. So, so even though you can fake your way into an interview, once you get to the interview stage, there's no more faking because people can see how old you are. So I got this advice from many other people my age, And it does help you get the interview process, and it does help you get experience um, in learning how to answer questions and interact with people and all that sort of stuff. But you just can't get past that last step, that you are who you are. So I guess the only other option left is to go buy one of those rubber masks that the movie actors use, and one of those silicone masks, and make yourself look like a young movie star, because that's about the only way you're going to get a job. So for younger people, conversely, I worked in one company where the manager would show us all the resumes people had when they applied for jobs, all the younger people. And I know that stuff's supposed to be private, but I had a good look at it. And I can tell you what, there are some really fantastic resumes. I mean, really well thought out. The only problem is a lot of them just look like bullshit. So they would have projects at universities which they would sort of manipulate and reword to be a job. So those sort of work experiences. And a lot of them would call themselves senior developers after just working as a programmer for 6 months. And it takes a lot more than 6 months to become a senior developer, that's for sure. So things like that. So and you can't blame them really. I mean, it's hard to get your first job when you haven't got any experience, and it's hard to get the job when you got too much experience. So in the end, to get a job, I find there's not really much you can do with your resume. I mean, it is what it is. So you can get yourself to the interview stage, but won't be able to progress much beyond that unless you truly go for an interview with an unbiased person. And I just watched a TEDx talk based in Australia last week. I'll provide a link to that. And the woman discusses that in Australia, at least, 1 in 4 companies would not even consider a person over 60, no matter how good their qualifications or how suitable they are for the job. And 1 in 6 companies just wouldn't hire an older person, purely based on their age. So that's the way things are at the moment. So it's got to make you think how this is affecting the health of older workers. So you look at countries like, say, Crete, where the average age of people is in the 90s or over 100, and in that culture there, they actually greatly respect older people. Whereas over here, at least in Western society, I notice I get very little, if any, respect at all. So I just wonder if these differences is what is causing a bit of stress and a bit of, enough to just shorten your life by a few years. So, enough rambling. I'll catch you later.